I was looking forward to meeting you that day, so like I said, I'm come back, right? So it's a topic that Jaya likes very much, and so we discussed this topic last time, and when we said, what should we speak about today, and we said, um, Jaya and I were talking, and very quickly she said, can you do what you did last year? Now, I'm not saying I have all those powers. I'm just saying we wish we had, right? But let me start with a story, very, very local story, very dear to everyone in India, especially those people in South India. Many of you may have heard of him. Who do you think I'm going to speak about? No. Much far. Someone, I'm not decrying Rajnikant, but this is not Rajnikant. This is not Rajnikant. Much farther down, 1912 India. 1912. No, Ramanujan. So for me, I don't think I have ever spoken anywhere at all without having spoken the story of Ramanujan. I'm not a mathematician. The last maths I did was in 11th standard back in 1972. After that, I've never really done maths. But the minute I read this book, The Man Who Knew Infinity by Robert Canigal, I was hooked. So I'm going to tell you the story, which of course most of you know. Ramanujan was born in Kumbakonam. When he was 4 years old, he realized that he had this love for maths. So he acquired these notebooks and started doing maths problems. His family was very poor. The only thing they could probably afford, apart from one meal a day, was one book for this little boy. So he kept on doing that. And again, goes back against the normal theory of having to succeed in university. He never passed in any of his topics, in subjects in school, somehow got through the education system. And very fortunately for us, came to Madras and joined a college called the Pachepas College. I don't know how many of you have seen the Pachepas College, but make a note of that. It could be one of the most important tourist destinations in Madras, simply because it housed Ramanujan's academic career. So he did his 3-year course in Pachepas College, and then went on to work. Because his family was so poor, he had to find employment like every one of us. And he worked in the Madras Port Trust, again very close to us, as a clerk in the Madras Port Trust. But he never lost, and this is where I think every one of us draws our lessons, right? You know, most of us, when we do our graduation, we think that's what it is, right? I've always asked my students at IIT Madras, saying, why is it that there is no IIT Madras engineer who is also not a doctor, right? Why? The NEET is open to everyone. It's very strange that we say, this is our life. So Ramanujan didn't say that, fortunately for us. He said, I am a clerk in the Madras Port Trust, but that doesn't mean that's my life. So he said, I don't want to lose my love for maths, and he kept on, doing maths all the time. Now comes the story. Now imagine you are 22 years old. You are living in 1912 British India, where you could be penalized for looking into the eyes of a British person. You could be penalized. So you'll have to sort of, when the British are walking, you have to sort of give way, right? And that was the India he was living in. And that is why I say Ramanujan, according to me, was one of the bravest people I've ever met. Normally, you would associate bravery with soldiers and things like that, but a mathematician and brave, what? You know what he did? Guess what he did? What is that thing he did which was so brave that I'm actually saying it to an audience 100 years later? What? What did he do? Go back to the context, English India, British India, mathematician, 22 years old, love for maths. What? He did something brave, something that we normally don't do. No. He wrote something. What did he write? What would one write in 1912 India? What did he write? He wrote a letter. You can ask me, Shiva, how is a letter a brave act? But the point is, he wrote a letter to an Englishman. He wrote a letter to Hardy, and I have a copy of that letter. I will pass it on to you. He wrote a letter to Hardy. Hardy was a British mathematician, right? One of the top mathematicians of the world at the time. And you must read that letter to understand the bravery of this man. He says, "Dear Mr. Hardy, my name is Ramanujan. I'm a clerk in the Madras High Court, Madras Port Trust at a salary of 20 pounds per annum." And then he goes on to say, I have been working on maths problems that everyone is working on, and I know I am right. He says, I know I am right. Look at that confidence, right? He says, I know I am right, and he goes on to come back. That's why I said, I wish I was a mathematician. You will be able to read it better. He goes on to prove certain things. He doesn't give the proof of many of his theories, but he writes a big letter and sends it to Mr. Hardy. Imagine, he sends his entire work to Hardy. It takes about 4 months to reach England because there is no fax, there is no WhatsApp, nothing at all. It reaches Hardy, and Hardy receives it after 4 months, looks at the notebooks and throws it away, saying it must be some mad person from India who has written this. Fortunately for us, there was this assistant to Hardy called Littlewood. Actually, when I was coming across the Ramanujan Center, I saw Littlewood Hall there. So I was so happy. I said, wow, they have actually mentioned Littlewood. So Littlewood takes these papers, runs to his hostel, looks at all the papers, and comes back running to Hardy after 3 days and says, Mr. Hardy, this man has done everything we're trying to do. And then that's the story. Starts all over again. Hardy wants, and this is what I tell my students at IIT Madras, saying, don't worry about campus interviews, because if you really are good, people will come looking for you, which is exactly what Hardy did. He sent an emissary to India to get Ramanujan to England. Of course, there is this cross-cultural aspect which prevented him from going to England. It took some time for his mother to be convinced. He went to England. He worked with Hardy for almost 5 or 6 years. At the end of 6 years, again, because of his cultural background, he could not survive the cold in England. He was very homesick. He had by then got married, so he was very homesick, wanting to see his wife. And then pardon? Yeah, food also was a problem for him. Again, many lessons learned. We have to do a lot of adjustments with our culture when we are outside. Then he got tuberculosis, came back to India, went to Triplicane, Thiruvallikeni it is called, and died at the age of 32. That's the story of Ramanujan. Brilliant, no? So what is the lesson for us? Just quickly before we go on to this. That's the story of Ramanujan. So what do you think is the lesson that we can draw from this story? I need some answers. Yes. Very good, nice. So brilliant. I don't want to underestimate myself. I have this habit of saying, I'm not enough, right? Beautiful sentence. Am I enough or not? The answer is yes, I am enough. Very good. Anyone else?
Reaching out to people.
I'm sorry?
Ability to reach out to people.
Very good. So therefore, yeah, it's a great one, because then as an entrepreneur, right, you're going to be now telling people what you're doing. You don't have any shame in what you're doing, right? You are okay. It's okay for you to be told you are wrong, but so what? So what? Someone tells you you are doing the wrong stuff. Brilliant. Thank you. Anyone else?
Whatever may be the
Chitralekha, right? Yes.
whatever may be the ecosystem we are in, our passion
should not be diminished. Yeah. Brilliant. So therefore, we cannot be the victim of our circumstances. Yes.
If we know we are correct, we can bravely rise
If you know you are
in the voice. Correct means we can bravely rise in the voice.
Yeah, good. I'm just going to alter it. Whether you know you're correct or not, it's okay to write and tell the world, this is what I'm doing, right? Very good. Thank you. I'm sorry? Yeah, that's obvious. Belief in himself.
The time period also is not
I'm sorry?
short time period also is not a matter.
Yeah, very good. So therefore, that's a great one. So longevity is something that all of us crave for, right? All of us want more and more life and more years and more this. But the question is, in the given time, what we have, what are we doing? Thank you. Very nice. So Ramanujan probably did not expect to die early, but that doesn't mean you stop, right? You stop making what you can. Very good. So Thank you for that, for listening to the story. You know what you should do now? Try and tell this story to as many young people as possible. Young, old, it doesn't matter. And pick up the lessons. The book that you can read, which is not the original autobiography, is The Man Who Knew Infinity. There's a lot of fiction there. And the funny thing is, I met someone, you won't believe this, but Robert Canigal, who wrote the book, when he came to India, he came to Madras to write the book. Apparently on that day, there was a bandh in Madras. So he was standing outside the airport looking for something to come. And an old man waved to him, to Robert, saying, come and share the auto with me. And Robert Canigal shared the auto. And he went to the Taj or something. Guess who that old man was? You won't believe what happened. He was the grandson of the man who told Ramanujan to write that letter. I'm getting goosebumps when can you imagine? Robert Canigal met the man, the grandson of the man who told Ramanujan, write a letter to Hardy. So,
Port trust, seems.
yeah, not port trust. So Ramanujan had a mentor who told him to write the letter. That man's grandson was sitting in the auto with the author of the book. All right, so we have how much time? How much time? Alka's got this gun in her hand. Where's the gun? I know. 12:30 is lunch, right? So it's okay for me to, yeah? All right. So first superpower. I don't want to say one by one. It's just something that I wrote, right? And you don't have to, but these are things that I believe in. First of all, I don't like to give this motivational speak because who needs motivation, right? So forget I'm motivating you. Let's collectively look at whether these things make sense. That's all. In your life, I'm an entrepreneur too. Jaya knows how much, Jaya's going to, it's a different story. She'd shout at me about my journey into entrepreneurship. We have a company incubated at IIT Madras, a research park called the Biomimicry Compass. And we're trying to find out if we can make biomimicry the next big science in the world. We're struggling, and I'm happy that we're struggling, right? So it's what you're going to listen to is something that I am going through myself, okay? So listening is what I would say one of the superpowers that, let's do this. Let's not just say listening. Why would listening be important to an entrepreneur? What is listening? What is listening? To understand what the other person is saying. Brilliant. When would you listen as an entrepreneur? When would you listen? When would you need to listen?
Interest.
I'm sorry?
When the interest comes
From
the other person.
Very good. So you need to listen. What is listening? What is listening?
Collection of data.
I'm sorry?
Collection of data.
Very good. So there are several types of listening. Collection of data.
Understand the pain of the customer.
Yeah. So understand what the other person is saying, right? Essentially, there are three types of listening. One is called passive listening, where you don't say anything at all. The other person speaks. It's called downloading. Second is active listening, where you participate in the listening conversation. The third is empathetic listening, which is very useful to you, where you put yourself in the shoes of the other person and say, oh, for instance, if I come and tell you, you know what, my mother is suffering from cancer. You put yourself in the son's shoes whose mother is suffering from cancer. You become me, right? So empathetic listening is very powerful. So what I will do is I will give you lots and lots of materials on listening. Just want you to remember listening as a superpower, right? How listening will be useful for entrepreneurs is what we learned in design thinking. Remember, day first today? What do you do first in design thinking? To understand the problem, what do? You talk to people. So when you're talking to people, if you don't listen to what they are saying, you won't understand their need. And if you're not going to make something in order to fulfill the need of someone, then you may go wrong, right? Listen to the need of the customer. Superpower 1, right? Curiosity. I think, I'll come back to the description of listening later on. Curiosity. Why would curiosity be a superpower? What is curiosity? I'm sorry?
Driving force.
Yeah, but why? What is the meaning of curiosity?
It's a questioning.
Ask questions, right? Are you all curious about me? So ask me questions, let's see. I'm not going to answer them, but let's see. That's a great attitude, I tell you, to ask questions. You know what? In schools, we have been told not to ask questions, right? The monitor will say, don't ask questions. Teacher will say, don't ask questions. For a minute, let's unlearn schools. Schools are the worst things in the world. Worst, right? Really, I wish we had never gone to school. We'd be much better off. Really, it just spoils you completely. So why curiosity? What is curiosity? Asking questions. So why would you ask questions for what? Why would you ask questions? More about what? Anything. Is it wrong to ask questions? Why are you not asking me questions about myself? Ask me some questions. Let's see, give me 10 questions about me. I may not answer it. Give me 10 questions. Just to get into the habit of asking questions.
How many customers do you have?
How many children? You know what? Okay. What did I do? Bad listening. I did bad listening. You said customers and I said children. Okay, how many customers? Okay, next question.
What philosophy you like?
What?
What philosophy
Do you like? Very good. Nice questions. What is the compass in biomimicry compass? What is your places of interest? Huh. What is your favorite book? I'm sorry? Why did I start my startup? Okay, anything else?
What did you have in your breakfast?
What did you have for breakfast? Nice. Brilliant. So I can see that veil lifting out of your head, saying, okay, it's okay to ask questions. Who says no? Right? Why should you not ask questions? It's curiosity. What's the first superpower? Listening. Now, listening has lots and lots of stuff. I'm only touching but I can talk all day on listening. Write to me. I'll send you lots and lots of material on listening. One of the problems with listening is there is something called filters, right? There are 6 filters. I'm not going to name all of them, but remember, if you are not a good listener, it's because a filter is interfering with you. A filter can be a bias filter. If I don't like you, I won't listen. If I think that your values are different from my values, I won't listen. If I think that your attitude is different from mine, I won't listen. So these are the filters that we have. And once you understand filters, you start to ask yourself what your filters are and try and remove them one by one. But as an entrepreneur, you cannot but listen. And there are some very important hygiene factors for listening, right? For instance, when the customer is speaking to you, there is no way you can look at your phone. There is no way you can look at your laptops. There is no way you can look at your watch. There is no way your body language can indicate that you're in a hurry, because in body language, if my shoe is pointing there and I'm speaking to Jaya, it means I want to go, right? So the respectful listening, or just tell the customer, I'm sorry, I don't have time now, can we talk later? The worst experience for me of listening was my mother was having a heart problem. So we went to this very famous hospital in Madras. And after great difficulty, we got appointment with this doctor, very famous cardiologist. So waiting outside his clinic, and then he calls us, and we go in the room. My mother is with me and my sister. So he said, sit down. So my mother sat down, then he took out his stethoscope, and he put the stethoscope on my mother's chest. At that time, he got a call. So imagine, he's listening to my mother's heart, he gets a call, and he's talking on the call. At that time, somebody comes inside, and he says, come in, and he's talking to that man. Who was he listening to? No one, right? And of course, needless to say that my mother passed away. It doesn't happen, I'm not connecting it, but I'm giving you this very graphic example of the hygiene factors in listening that we are constantly doing. Looking at our watch, looking at our phone. When the customer is speaking to you, for you, he is the most reverential person in your world, no one else. And it can happen only through listening. The joke in IIT Madras from all my students, if you want to fall in love, if you want someone to fall in love with you, take her for coffee and just listen to her. And see the amount of text messages you get. Can we meet again? Can we meet again? Many of my students have tried it and they have been successful. Nothing else you need. You just need to sit down and listen. So again, when I was practicing as a lawyer, in the family court, most cases of divorce are about lack of listening between couples. I have heard couples say, when the judge asks them that you with so much of difficulty, you people got married. What happened? Why are you filing for divorce? Most of the time, the lady says, this is not the man I married, right? She's apparently fallen in love with someone else, and it's a new person she's meeting in her life. Therefore, I'm talking so much about listening. Okay, any questions on listening? Keep the questions. It'll give you the opportunity to ask me questions on listening, write to me and everything, okay? So then is curiosity. Imagination. Why would imagination be important? What is imagination? What is imagination? What is imagination?
Picturing a thought we have in mind.
Very good, excellent. Just simply taking your mind somewhere, right? What else is imagination? Imagination. Can you imagine your company 20 years from now?
It gives the connectivity there, like in some place.
Yeah, it draws pictures in your head, right? So imagine a new season. Anyone? Imagine a new season. What would it be? A new season. Imagine a new season.
Cold weather in the morning.
Cold weather in the morning.
Rain in the afternoon.
Very good. Rain in the afternoon. A cloud just above you, right? One, like, good. I'm sorry? No rain, yeah. So what are you people doing? You are visualizing, right? Visualizing is a very powerful way of visualizing your company. Visualize your conversation with the customer, right? Before you go to the customer's office, sit down and say, what will happen? I'll walk in. As soon as I walk in, the customer says, please sir, sit down. Then he offers me tea or coffee. Visualize everything. Visualize the questions you will ask. And then when you actually go to do that, you will find that you've already done it before. To make speeches, visualization. When I worked with the Delhi Daredevils, Virendra Sehwag was a huge fan of visualization. We used to visualize an entire match. We would actually visualize that the bowler is coming to bowl, and Viru is standing there, and the bowler is coming, and the Viru actually bats, and the ball strikes the middle of his bat and flies away for a 6. And what happens when he actually goes into bat? This confidence that he's already seen it before happens. So imagination, visualization, right? So listening, what is listening? Listening, what is listening? To understand what the other person is. Curiosity you do by? Brilliant. Imagination is? Visualization. Seeing what is to be seen, right? Anything at all, anything. I can go to the moon and now I'm back here. I've just gone to the moon. Moon was nice. But a lot of small holes were there. But there was no, what's that? There was no, that Indian spacecraft was not. I was looking for it. What is the name of that? Land Rover. Okay, so 3 over. This we learned yesterday, right? What did we learn? This is brilliant, okay? According to me, my favorite is connectedness. What was the quotation we made first today? What is the quotation? When a butterfly flaps its wings in Brazil, it rains in India. Can you ask for anything else? Everything is connected. Everything is connected. IIT Madras, what is to understand connectedness, what is that one vehicle that you must have, imaginary vehicle that you get into to understand that everything is connected? Okay, you walk into IIT Madras, correct? You walk into IIT Madras. What do you see on the left first? As soon as you walk in, who checks you? security. And then you walk some more. You go to buildings and all that. But is that IIT Madras? IIT Madras, what are the connections in IIT campus? What are the different connections? Go back to elements. Who are the elements? The departments, hostels, students, library, research park, right? Suppose you want to see all of them in one shot. How will you see it? Brilliant. You'll take a? No. How will you, what vehicle will you go in? You have to sit in that vehicle. Helicopter. So you always have an imaginary helicopter with you. Whenever small problems happen to you in your life, you take a small imaginary helicopter and look from the top. When you look from the top, you see IIT Madras is dependent, the students are dependent on the faculty is dependent on the canteen is dependent on the security is dependent on admin, and everybody is dependent on each other, everyone is connected to each other. It's a great way to understand life, right? When something happens to me, I'm not really at fault. So as an entrepreneur, what are the connections you have as an entrepreneur? Suppose you take yourself up and you look at your life from the top. What are the connections an entrepreneur has? Who are you all connected with? Customers, investors, government bodies, incubators, what else? Finance, money, your own family, right? And each of you is connected. So once you understand where your problems are coming from, and you're not necessarily the one person who's causing the problem, when you take the helicopter from top, you understand where the problems are coming from, which is why you must use the superpower. Learn that subject like it's nobody's business. What's the name of the subject that I said that day that you must learn? You wrote it down. What is? Systems? Systems thinking. That's it. Systems thinking is your go-to subject for understanding connectedness. I run a systems thinking course. It changes lives.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Suppose the system is under crisis or what?
I'm sorry?
Suppose the system is under crisis.
Under crisis.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what that helps you understand, right? Where to. Remember, I told you my sister's problem that day, right? When my sister died, the whole family collapsed because certain things that my sister was doing, nobody else could do. So my sister's family was a system. My sister was an element. My brother-in-law was an element. My nephew was an element. The children were an element. My sister died. The children stopped going to school. And nobody understood why. Because they forgot the connections between my sister's role and what she was doing. So where sometimes crisis happens because there's a crisis in one of the parts of the system. And when that part meets with a crisis, the whole system collapses. So your job as an entrepreneur is to find out where the crisis is happening, to try to find out if you can repair it, right? So what are the 4 things we learned? Listening. I can't hear you. Okay, 3. Connectedness, very good. Falling in love. Falling in love, of course, falling in love, but also falling in love with what you are doing, right? I can't even start describing because all of you know, you have seen falling in love in movies, you've fallen in love yourself. Why I wrote falling in love is because of this word, right? This word, vulnerable. I do a lot of coaching, right? And in coaching, one of the things that we always address is vulnerability. What is vulnerability?
Delicate.
Huh?
Delicate.
Very good, delicate. What is vulnerability?
Very sensitive.
Sensitive, vulnerability. Then, what is the meaning of vulnerability? I'm sorry? Prone to circumstances, weak, right? Weak. Yeah, weak. Sometimes I cry, right? I cry when something happens to me. If something happens to me, I cry, and it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel powerless. So the point is to accept our own vulnerability. We accept our own vulnerability only when you fall in love. Because when you fall in love, you just fall in love totally, right? You trust this person, you trust this job, you trust this product, you trust this process so much that there's nothing else. So I'm just saying, go ahead and become fall in love people, whatever you're doing. I'm not talking about passion, I'm simply talking about falling in love with whatever you want to. And it's okay to fail, it's okay to feel vulnerable. Your product is going to cheat you one day, just like cheating happens in love. Your product is going to disappoint you. I think it's okay. It's okay to be disappointed. Yeah, go do whatever you want, Chitralekha. Yeah, it's just a way of saying things, that's all. The only thing about falling in love is don't be disappointed if things don't work out for you. Because when you are ready to fall in love, that's what you're ready for. They're ready for facing a disappointment, right? It could be anything at all. Because when you fall in love with something, you fall so much in love with it that no one can say anything about your product. That's what you will say. Don't do that. If you find it's not so sensible to follow something, to continue to do something, it's okay to do something else, right? So that's the superpower I wanted to talk about. What is ambiguity? What is ambiguity? Very good, excellent. Who said that? Very good, thank you. Why do you say that? Huh? Yeah, but why do you say, okay, why would it be a superpower?
Because sometimes we have to take decisions where we are not completely sure.
Okay.
Fall into the trap of
It opens the door. It opens the door. It opens the door.
Yeah, wait, sorry, continue.
That's what taking risk is, right? Risk is basically that you don't know fully about something, but you still choose to do it because you.
So not knowing, being comfortable with not knowing, right? Very good, excellent. Anyone else? See, not knowing is all right, right? Sometimes we are there are two types of, when we teach cross-culture, we learn there are two types of cultures in the world. One culture is the culture that is very certain. Everything should be certain. I should know what money I am having. I should know what salary I'm going to receive. I should know who I'm going to marry. I should know what time the train is going to come. Everything is certain. Craving for certainty. There are certain people in the world who are like that. The West, for instance. There are other people in the world who are comfortable with ambiguity. Comfortable with ambiguity means you don't know when the train is going to come. Like traffic in India, right? You don't drive on the left of the road. You drive on what is left of the road, right? Everything is so ambiguous. There is nothing known. And in entrepreneurship, you're not going to know everything. So you cannot be tense and stressed out saying, will this happen? Will this happen? Will this happen? It cannot happen. It doesn't happen. You should just say, I'm not saying a laid-back attitude, but I'm saying the comfort, saying like what he said, right? I may not know everything. And apparently the Indians are very gifted for ambiguity because those cultures that depend on the monsoons are ambiguous because you don't know when the monsoons will come. And therefore we have this innate ability, to be ambiguous. So when I was working in TCS, this was one of our highlights of working with Indians. So whenever our foreign clients used to come to India, and they had a huge problem with Indians because when they say, when will you finish the project? We say, no, will the project finish by Saturday? We say, maybe. What's the meaning of maybe? Will it finish or not? And we say, no, we don't know, maybe. Maybe is a very typical Indian word, but it's a brilliant word because it gives you possibilities, right? For instance, today Alka, see, when do programs ever start on time in India? Tell me, right? 11:30 is 11:45, 11:45 is 11:15, anything at all. Time is again related to ambiguity. Time, again in India, there are two types of people in the world. One is a person who says time is scarce. And the other person who says there's lots of time in the world. Where would you put the Indian in? Time is scarce or time is plentiful? Time is plentiful, lots of time, right? Therefore, in India, trains come late or very late, right? It's okay to go 15 minutes late to a meeting and things like that. I'm not saying go late, but it's simply a state of mind, right? So therefore, there's a big connection between timeliness and ambiguity, but I'm saying remember ambiguity because it'll help you. It'll help you to understand it's okay not to know. So what are the things that we have learned? Listening, curiosity, imagination, connectedness, falling in love, and ambiguity. I've lost. Resilience. What is resilience?
To adapt to the situation.
Yeah, to bounce back. To bounce back. And as an entrepreneur, you have to understand that so many times you have to bounce back. How many of you have failed in your life? Ah, nice. Good to see that. Failed in what? Exams? How many have failed in an exam? How many have failed your degrees? Degree. Ah, I'm better at it. I'm better than you. Huh? No. Only degree. I failed in my BCom. And it's very difficult to fail in BCom. It's very difficult. And I failed. I failed in banking, cost accounts, special accounts. I got 18, 19, and 20. My parents were completely gone. They were crying all the time. I didn't know what to do because I was too young to understand what was happening. And then I wrote an exam again. In Madras, we can do an exam twice a year. So April, again September. So I went for tuition classes. At that time, we had something called tutorials. So there was something called a Minerva tutorial in Egmore. So I went at a tutorial. I got ragged in the tutorial. So, excuse me, come here. Yes, sir. How many times did you fail? Once. Saying, no shame. Look at that guy. He's failed 5 times, right? So this is what I learned. I learned that there are people in the world who are failing several times. And I wrote my exam again in September. And I'm not joking. You can see my mark sheet. I got 22, 23, 24 in banking, costing, and special accounts. Again, I failed. Now I'm enjoying myself. I said, okay, when is the next exam? And unfortunately, I wrote my exam again. Again, I passed. I think Madras University said, let this guy go through too many times. And that's when I learned this big lesson in my life, saying, it's okay to fail, right? Because I'm not saying I should not have failed. I should not have failed. I should have studied well. It's just so easy. So therefore, there's no connection to why I failed. The point is failure. And it's going to happen to all of us. It's going to happen to every one of you. And if you have to be resilient by giving up something for your entrepreneurship for 2 years, that's okay, I'm saying. I hope it's okay to say that. Yeah. It's okay. And come back. You don't have to shoot yourself, right? You don't have to do that. You can ask yourself, what is the problem I'm having? Is it money? Then maybe get a part-time job or something, right? The resilience is what you should do to come back. It's not just bouncing back. It is simply saying, okay, I have failed now, what should I do? Don't look for a cliff. That's what I'm saying. Don't look for jumping off from somewhere. That's not the point. The point is, what should I do? I have failed. What should I do next? Remember we spoke in design thinking? What did we say? Sometimes we don't fail. What fails? Our ideas fail. Brilliant. So we generate 10 ideas, right? Ideation, design thinking, you generate 10 ideas. So an entrepreneur, what do you do? Out of these 10 ideas, you choose one idea for implementation. And then you go ahead to prototype it and all that. And then you find the idea has failed. What do you do then? You go back to the other idea. You do what is called iteration. You say, maybe it's not my idea that failed. I chose the wrong idea to pursue. Then you go back. What else can fail when you learn as a design thinker? What else can fail? You could have chosen the wrong problem to solve, right? When you generate problems, you could have chosen. So there are several ways as to why you have failed. So understand why you failed. So what are the superpowers? listening, curiosity, imagination, falling in love, connectedness,
Ambiguity, resilience.
resilience. Very good. Yeah. Permission to express your feelings. Again, sometimes, I think, again, a cultural thing. There are lots and lots of us who don't like to express feelings. I'm saying it's okay to express your feelings openly. It's okay to tell the customer, I'm sorry, I've disappointed you this time. It's okay to tell a friend of mine, I'm sorry. It's okay to say, I'm feeling bad. It's okay to say, I'm feeling good. It's okay to express your emotions. There's nothing wrong in expressing your emotions. There's no shame. I'll send you a video, a TED talk by this lady called Brené Brown, where she talks about vulnerability and shame. See, there's nothing called shame in this world. There's nothing. What is shame? Right? I still remember, as a lawyer, I went to, I was very interested in practicing criminal law. And at that time, I just started practice. And I was asked to meet a person in jail. He was arrested under the Gundas Act. Gundas Act, a Gunda by definition is someone who's committed offense several times, more than 10, 15 crimes. So I was told to go and meet him. I was really scared because I've never been to jail before. My senior lawyer told me, Shiva, in your horoscope, if you have to go to jail, there's a good chance for you, right? And so I went to Central Jail here near the Central Station, and I was terrified because I read what all he has done. He's attempted murder, all sorts of things, dacoity and all that. His name is Srinivasan. His nickname was Sevittu Srinivasan. Sevittu in Tamil means deaf. And when I went in, the jailer told me, sir, be careful, he's a very violent fellow. So I was saying, okay, let me see. So I went in, he was behind the bars. Has any of you been to jail? No. I'm sorry, it's a horrible question, but you must do these things in life, really, curiosity. You must do these things in life, please. What are you people doing? Yeah? Just sitting. You must go to the High Court. You must watch. You must go and see these things. You can't just sit in front of your mobile phone. You have to go and see the High Court. You have to go and see jails. You have to go and see the general hospital. If you go to the general hospital, you will never again drive fast in your life. If you go to the orthopedic ward, you find people, all sorts of things, bandaged and this. You will never again go without a helmet. And these are things you must do. You must visit these things. You people are young. You must go to visit these things that normally we don't visit. You must go into the kitchen of a restaurant. This is where curiosity happens, right? You see what's happening. You must go and sit in a classroom. You can't talk about the customer without what is called journey map, right? The journey map of what shadowing the customer, it's called, going behind wherever the customer is going. These are all things we learn in design thinking if we learn it in a deeper way. So I went to jail, right? And I was standing in front of this guy, Srinivasan. I said, hello, Srinivasan. நான் தான் உங்க advocate. In Tamil, நான் தான் உங்க வக்கீல். She said, please, inga vaanga sir. I went near him. He caught my hand. He started crying. He was sobbing like a child. I said, ennachu? That's the day I realized a huge thing. I say, see, every one of us in this world is capable of everything. This man was holding onto my hand and he was crying like a child. He says, sir, please get me out of this. I want to see my daughter. I want to see my mother. And that's exactly what he said, right? I looked at him as a prisoner. He was a criminal, but he was also a father. He was also a son to a person. And suddenly you understand that all of us have feelings, and it's okay to express. I had to sort of assure him, saying, I'll get you out. Of course, that's a different story. I couldn't get him out. Because if you're a gunda, then you have to stay in jail for 1 year. Otherwise, you can get out in 24 hours. You get bail. This was a non-bailable offense. I couldn't have got him out. That was a different argument with the judge. So, you want to listen to that argument? Yes? How I argued and I failed? So what happened was, in the Gundas Act, if you have to get someone out of the jail, you have to prove to the court that the police did not tell him why he is being arrested, right? Supposing I'm arresting you, sorry, just for joking, right? Supposing I'm the policeman, I'm arresting you because you're a gunda. I have to, what's your name? Ram. I have to say, Ram Kumar, this is what you have done. See, understood? Arrest. Now this is mandatory. If the prisoner has not known what he is what his offense is, he cannot be. So this man is an illiterate fellow. So the policeman has told him why he is. So I told the judge, he has not been told. Judge said, why? I said, because he is Servitu Srinivasan, he is deaf, he would not have heard anything. The judge just threw me out. He says, please go, don't come here to this court. Anyway, so range of emotions, okay? What is next? Empathy. This we know. I didn't have the time to show you that brilliant video on empathy on Muruganandam. Have you heard of Muruganandam? Muruganandam you have not heard of, entrepreneurs. We must actually get Muruganandam here. Muruganandam is a great video, I'll send it to you. Muruganandam, in his video, of course, he says, we got him to IIT Madras twice. His name is Arunachalam Muruganandam. I'll tell you the story, then you'll know who he is. He didn't do school. He studied only up to the 8th standard. And once what he does, he understands his wife is going through her menstruation, so he buys a sanitary napkin and he gives it to her. And she shouts at him, throws away the sanitary napkin and says, if I am going to use the sanitary napkin, I have to cut the milk budget. Don't ever come back. Don't think I don't know about sanitary napkins. And she throws him away. This man is this is a true story, Indian story. He's very depressed. He's very upset. He's saying, what is this? She threw me out, but I know she's suffering because apparently she's using some rag cloth and some tea leaves or something like that, which is very unhygienic. Then he now wants to understand what a woman goes through when she goes through menstruation. So he tries to find out various ways. He's not able to. And then he stumbles upon empathy. I'm still having goose pimples. Look at that man, okay? Look at this entrepreneur, 8th standard, who actually wants to understand what a menstruating woman goes through during her period. You know what he does? He fills a bladder with animal blood, ties it to his abdomen, and allows the blood to flow to his panties, and walks for 5 days, cycles for 5 days, sleeps for 5 days with that bladder, and understands the pain of a woman. And understanding that pain, comes to the conclusion that all it requires is some cellulose, some stuff, which you can make for 1 rupee. Then he starts an entire industry making affordable napkins in India. And his business model is, he makes any villager buy the cellulose, buy the cloth, and buy a machine, and you just have to press the cellulose to the cloth, and it gets stuck, and he's competing with who is the Johnson & Johnson, right? What's that? What are the big companies in sanitary napkins? Yeah. So just listen to the TED Talk. I'll send it to you. So where was Muruganandam's empathy? Where would you say he used his empathy? When he, what did he do to understand? But what did he do? He put himself in her shoes and actually lived those 5 days. So do you, in your entrepreneurial careers, are you going to empathize with your customers so much that you take off your shoes and put yourself in the shoes of the customer, right? And that's what is important. But when I'm taking off my shoes and put yourself in the shoes, when I did it with Vineet that day, what is difficult? Getting into Vineet's shoes or no, look at this. I take off my shoes and get into the shoes of Vineet. I become Vineet. You saw me that day doing it. Now this act of taking off your shoes and getting into the shoes of Vineet is, there are two things to it. What is more difficult in empathy? Huh? Brilliant. Empathy is not about putting yourself in his shoes. Empathy is about taking off your own shoes. That's what we are bad at. Stop being you. Start being the woman who is menstruating. Go back to the watchman example that I said that is. Stop being you. Become the watchman. And that is why it's such a great superpower, because apparently all of us are gifted with the power of empathy. A 2-day-old child will cry because it's listening to the cry of another 2-day child. It doesn't know why the child is crying, but it simply cries, saying some child is crying in distress. I should also cry. How when we are watching a movie, tears fill our eyes, right? Why? Yeah, right? Fine, so we're coming to an end. Alka, I'm coming. 1 minute more, done. And last is letting go. Yeah, sorry, the last is letting go. You know what it is, right? It's okay to let go. It's okay not to have a house. It's okay not to have a large office as an entrepreneur. It's okay not to have lots and lots of money. It's okay not to have a car. It's okay not to have all those things that other people have. And even if you had it someday, it's okay to say, I don't want it anymore. And finally, this is my favorite really, irreverence. Irreverence is to question everything. Don't be so reverential that you're blind to something. It's not a good idea. Many of us are so reverential, right? We say, no, this cannot be questioned. I cannot question my parents. Why not? I cannot question this. Why not? If you're not questioning because you're so reverential, please don't be. That's me, right? That's what I'm saying. There's nothing called, that's why I said be respectful. You can go and ask the top guy saying, I don't understand why you're doing this. That's all right. It's all right to question. It's not all right to be reverential, to say whatever this person is saying is right. It's not true. So that's it for me. What are the 11? If one of you can repeat it, it'll be nice. Yes. Listening. Curiosity. Very good. I myself forgot. Thank you. Empathy. Letting go. Irreverence.